Greetings, Lewis, and welcome to another video. So, there's a lot of things I want to cover now that I'm back on the channel. Uh, Legacy of Destruction was legal last weekend. Infinite Forbidden was legal for the OCG last weekend. YCS Japan, which is like the biggest YCS ever being held, also happened during the past weekend as well. And there are so many things I want to cover, but I figured this would be like a really good save point because YCS Japan uh, is a really big deal, and it's not because of the player size or the player representation. The biggest thing about YCS Japan that I kind of like to lean towards is the fact that it's the first major event with Infinite Forbidden being legal, and Infinite Forbidden was legal the same weekend. That is a really big deal because, as you will see, like later on, there were a few decks and strategies that actually did top this event that were playing new cards from Infinite Forbidden, and just having like less than 48 hours to play those cards legally for that event and still do well with it just shows you how strong these strategies are. We already saw this in the past with Snake Eye in Phantom Nightmare. When Phantom Nightmare got released, literally on the same weekend, Snake Eye was dominating in tournaments in the OCG, and then it just became like one of these better decks in the format. So, as you guys already know, over 8,000 players played. It was a best of one because they pretty much have to do it. Otherwise, you'll be playing the YCS for an entire week, and they don't like keep the venue for that long. Historically, it has been like that for all 10 YCSs, like in Japan. But it's still interesting to like take into consideration everything that happened. As you can see here, Tenpai Dragon was the most represented deck in day two. Is the deck that pretty much made most of Top Cut. The number one reason for that is because Tenpai Dragon is a very dominant strategy in best of one. In best 12 and 3, it's a lot harder to gauge the power of Tenpai Dragons because you will be seeing like the silver bullet cards that are just made to like fight that strategy. But in best of one, where you are going in blind, and there are so many decks in the format that you have to like consider. Tenpai is one of the strongest choices because it's a really good going second deck. It has so many tools in its arsenal, and you will see from the results, Tenpai Dragon did make it to the finals of the YCS. So that means no slouch. Here in the TCG, this is a really big deal because Tenpai Dragons just became legal in the TCG because of Legacy of Destruction, and the deck also overperformed here in this past weekend. It has topped and won a bunch of regionals. It's done very well at case tourneys, and with the Mexican YCS happening this next weekend, I'm pretty sure that we will see Tenpai Dragons do very well as with people preparing for it. As you can see here, the winner of the event played Voiceless Voice. Voiceless Voice also is really strong here in the TCG because of Blessing of the Voiceless Voice, which is the new spell card. You see that here in this list. And not only is this card really strong for Voiceless, this card legitimately won the game for the finals of the Voiceless player. Basically, both him and the Tenpai opponent both bricked. Voiceless didn't brick, but it got heavily hand trapped and heavily countered by like the Tenpai's cards, non-engine cards. And then it got to the point where Blessing was pretty much the best top deck because it secured him cycling back into his resources. As you can see here, they still have Linkuribo. Linkuribo is being used to pair up with Secure Garna. The reason you play this engine is because of Blessing itself. It allows you to do your Ritual Summon turn 1 while using blessing instead of using prayers or Saphira. In the TCG, this play is still legal, but instead of Linkuriboh, we have to use Salamangreat Almirage instead, because Linkuriboh is forbidden. Outside of that, this is just pretty normal for voiceless. This was the only voiceless player that made top 64. Their day one record was 7-1. Their day two record was 8-0. So very very phenomenal performance. Over here you see Tenpai Dragons. Tenpai Dragons became a slightly stronger in the OCG because of the new yellow guy next to Magnamut, which is called Rengoku, or people are calling it Tenpai Poplar. This is really a good card because it's just another extender for the deck. People are playing Magnamut now because Magnamut allows you to grab Goku and then you can just special the Goku during your opponent's end phase. So that's a really really strong tech idea to consider. I'm not gonna show many of the Tenpai lists because when it comes to Tenpai Dragons, you just have to just choose whatever non-engine you want to play. The same 14 cards or 15 now with the Rengoku are going to be like the same for pretty much every list. The extra deck can vary a little bit. They are playing better on the floor. We don't have that here in the TCG. They are playing pretty much everything else that we do have. So on third place we got Melodious, and that's also a really big deal because Melodious just came out. The new support just came out in Legacy of Destruction. So if you want to play that deck, you can just pretty much play this exact list. We don't have Maxi, but we do have 3 Orange Light, 3 Prosperity, 3 Crossout, just to like circumvent the loss of Maxi. So you can just pretty much play this list the same way it's being played, barring Maxi, and you should be doing just fine like with this strategy. So this is Salamangreat. Salamangreat made top 4, and I think it's a very big deal to mention Salamangreat because they're not playing Code of Soul, and Code of Soul is a new card that just arrived in Legacy of Destruction. It is an OCG import, and from what I've been hearing from a lot of players, that card really benefits Salamangreat. This player opted not to run it, and they still overperformed. They just making it very shy out of the finals, and losing the third place spot to Melodious. But yeah, very very strong deck. I think with Promethean Fire Princess, with no Maxi in the TCG, this deck is not that weak to Nibiru like anymore. There are like a few other plays that you can do with the deck and the strategy. Yeah, I think this is a very safe pick for this format if you're looking for like other options besides the more meta strategies. Over here you see Runic Stone. Shoutouts to Deflex. He made top 32 in YCS Rally. He's from our locals. Really, really good player. So he's been playing this deck for a while now. This is historically been a tradition in the OCG. This is not new to the TCG. In the TCG, this is a little bit more obscure. Again, shoutouts to Deflex. It's really really good knowing that this deck made it all the way to top 8, considering it was best of 1 and all the ridiculous strategies that are roaming in like the metagame. And Tenpai Dragons is like one of the worst matchups for this deck because they are playing like Spell and Trap Hate in the main deck. Like you see this one plays triple Cosmic Cyclone. There are other lists that are playing like Harpy's Feather Duster, Heavy Storm, etc. Oh, and I guess another card I should talk about. You see how they're playing all the limited floodgates. They're also playing Super Ancient Grave of the Organism, and they're also playing this card called Tyrant Throws. If I'm not mistaken, you tribute two monsters, and your opponent can no longer activate monster effects. I think that's how it works. So really strong floodgate. Here we see Whitewood Centurion. I'm actually very excited for this list. I think out of every deck that topped this past weekend in YCS Japan, this is by far my favorite. I'm just a fan of Centurion, and every strategy that can do well alongside it, I'm just going to like evaluate it in a very high regard. We see here they play a very minimalistic Centurion engine. They pretty much just play 1, 1, and 1, and it makes perfect sense. You pretty much want to like bridge into your Centurion engine with your Whitewood cards, and not with your Centurion cards. And once you get your Centurion cards in rotation and you get your engine rolling, you really don't need to play with the Centurion cards anymore, because the Whitewoods are just going to like pick up the pace of whatever you're doing with your strategy. We see here Gimmick Puppet. So Gimmick Puppet topped this past weekend. It made top 16. The record was 11-1, and that is very scary, because again, this deck has been dormant for the longest time, like pretty much over a decade. And now, because of Infinite Forbidden, this deck is now a very strong contender. The really scary thing about the Gimmick Puppet is that it's a deck that can FTK, but at the same time, this deck can really break through boards if they go second. The way they do it is because of Biscay Doll and Terror Baby. I already spoke about this in my channel if you want to like look it up. But essentially, these two cards make it so all your Gimmick Puppet monsters are very hard to like be interacted with, and that's really strong for you, because some of these Gimmick Puppet monsters, they just thrive out of cards your opponent controls, and some of them just give controls to your opponent. So very scary deck. This deck should be very respected. We see they play the Horus engine. A lot of people have the misconception on how this deck is locked into Gimmick Puppets. You are locked into Gimmick Puppets if you activate like the new doll. However, you're only locked into Gimmick Puppets from the extra deck. You're not locked into Gimmick Puppets from the main deck, and it's for the rest of the turn. Actually, no, this one's during the turn. That being said, the Horus engine does not conflict. They make rank 8s. So the reason the Horus engine is here is either you make number 90 or number 38 right before you do your entire Gimmick Puppet combo. If you already get to those your Gimmick Puppet cards, then you can use your Horus engine to just like spit out more rank 8 XYCs to just like grind your opponent's resources. No pun intended. Over here we see Snake Eye. There were multiple Snake Eye tops in this YCS. However, one that stood out to me a lot was the Fiendsmith version. So basically, they're playing a mini engine of regarding Fiendsmith and regarding like the Fable Lurie, and you'll see a few of the Fiendsmith extra cards. The end goal of the Fiendsmith cards are to like either combo extend really hard with them when you're going second, or if you go first, you make Beatrice. And with Beatrice, you can send Silvera. You can send like other cards that just help out tutor into your Snake Eye engine. If you didn't open any of your Snake Eye cards, the way it works is you just Foolish for a Snake Eye, and then you link away Beatrice into Promethean Fire Princess, and then you use Fire Princess to summon Snake Eye Ash, and then you're doing the combo but backwards. This particular version of Snake Eye not only topped YCS Japan, but it's also been topping like in multiple events in the OCG, like right when the set came out. So keep an eye for Fiendsmith. I think this is going to be a really, really strong engine moving forward. I think a lot of decks are going to be implementing this. And if Beatrice is not in the forbidden list, like before this card will be abused in like more and more decks. One of the tops was Ritual Beast. If you saw my Yu-Gi-Oh! Alert video, you know that I spoke a little bit about Ritual Beast. I also made a compendium talking about Ritual Beast and his history in the game. So feel free to check that out. But I think this is going to be a really, really strong deck. Once the new support comes out in TCG, like this deck can play Dimension Shifter. This deck can play Colossus. This deck can play other cards. The deck can play Tisabu. It can play Ghost and Match. It can play Skill Drain. Like this deck is very combo heavy. It's a deck that is very hard to predicate. Like playing around. It does have openers. It does have extenders. The deck had a consistency issue for the longest time. Now we have a few one card combos in the deck, and yeah, once this deck goes to the grind game, you are pretty much gonna win because Ritual Beast's resources are almost infinite. The one thing that I do find interesting in this particular Ritual Beast version is that they're only playing one copy of Steeds. I don't know if Steeds is going to be at one as a norm moving forward, but so far it worked out for them. Obviously, they have Maxi, but we have three teleport, three shifter, and three crossout to make up for the losses. And the last deck I kind of want to talk about uh, is Memento. Memento received new support in Forbidden as well. It received a new fusion monster and we received the new mystical sheep. This deck just did super well. It also made top 16 or top 32 rather. One thing that is very interesting in this deck is the fact that they're playing Shadow Falco. If you're wondering how do you get to Shadow Falco, you basically used Memento Gatic as a material for Sprint, and then you use Sprint to send Falco, and you can use your fusion spell to fuse into El Shadow Winda. And since it's a quick play spell, you can do it in either player's turn. So essentially what you can do is just have a pseudo lock ready for your opponent that they pretty much are forced to play like into. And not only that, if you pair that with like Memento's strong interactions that they have now, like with their new fusion monster, with the Fracture Dance, which is the normal trap card, and like your hand traps, this deck is very very like good at like securing the mid to late game. This deck has a lot of starters too, so it's very hard to break with this deck anymore. Like not only is your Anguish, Blade, and Tatsunojigor your starters, but Mace, Goblin can also be starters as well. You also have Bone Party paired with any other Memento also becomes a starter. So yeah, uh, that's pretty much what I wanted to cover today. I want to cover a lot more things, but I figured YCS Japan is like a very very strong selling point. Not only did we see performance from strategies that just became legal here because of Legacy of Destruction, but we also saw strategies that are legal for Infinite Forbidden. We also saw like a very diverse pool of top contending decks. Like before an event like this one, we were like slaughtered with Snake Eyes in left and right for months. And just seeing like something a little bit different. Granted, Tenpai Dragons pretty much just took their spot because it was in a very ideal deck for this event. I think it's on just a matter of time until we see like a lot of the other decks just keep up with the top contending decks in the room. One deck we did not talk about in this video was Jubel, and I will leave Jubel for a separate video. So just to like let you know, these are not just the viable decks in the format. There are many other decks that are valuable for a format like this one. These are just the ones that just managed to like reach top cut. But yeah, that's it from me. I hope you found this video informative to your liking and understanding. Keep practicing and keep dueling.